Okay, everyone, thanks for coming. Yeah, first there will be grid and then there will be cake afterwards. Okay, yeah, my name is Marco. I'm from Bremen. I work at a company called Neuland. Back to that later. I'm 42 years old, so I guess I may have found the meaning of life. Well, probably. Maybe it's CSS, maybe it's something different. I'm a front-end developer. I've been doing that since 2001. And yes, I work at Neuland, and we are a silver sponsor, and we hire all that stuff. So if you're interested, come visit our website. So why am I doing a talk about grid layout? That's easy, because it's awesome. And then some. So, do you have any questions? No? Okay. Well, how did we build websites in the past? Here's a slide which you might be familiar with. What is that? Frame sets, right. Those are the good old frames. I'm proposing we use frames now. No, I don't. But frames were pretty easy to use, I think, and you just set up a frame set and it loads automatically, asynchronously in the background, every containing element on the website. But yeah, there were some problems with that. It wasn't really accessible, so that was bad, and it was bad for search engines and some other stuff, and you could even include content you don't own, which nowadays would be quite crucial. Back in the past, no one really mattered or took matter. So yeah, right. So what could that be? Tables, right? The good old tables. Yeah, many people even. Maybe in this house or so were always taught how to create a website, and for many years it's been always table layout. You always do it with tables, and yeah, of course it was quite easy because you had easy aligning and centering everything. You could center elements vertically, horizontally, however you want. And you could create some pretty interesting layouts. Like, for example, do stuff like having a circle and aligning things around it. That was all pretty easy with table. But the eventual HTML looked pretty ugly. Yeah, and that what most people would call table hell. And it was only good for fixed layouts. So we're living in 2017 and everything is responsive. Tables don't really work on small devices. Well, they do, but they're kind of small. Right. So then, thanks to people, now first, what could that be? How would you call that? Yeah, you could call it div hell. Yeah, you could call it dividers, whatever. Right? That is what most people called CSS layout in the past. Yeah, those came up all at once, no matter. Yeah, you had websites like Zen Garden, and you had a list apart, and you had people like Jeffrey Zeltman who all proposed that and said, well, don't use table layouts, use CSS for laying things out. And yeah, they were quite good. You had to mess with things like floats and clearing floats, and which sometimes didn't work, like in IE6. And sometimes you probably remember websites like Position is Everything. You had all these quirks that you had to mess with, and there were all kinds of hacks how to fix these problems. And yeah, eventually we wound up doing only display inline block and display block and not messing around with floats anymore. But then in 2013, I was happy to be at a conference in Warsaw, and I saw a talk by Rachel Andrew, and she talked about the stuff that well, was in the near future. It wasn't really possible at that point, but I was really looking forward to that. And one thing, of course, was Flexbox. And as the name suggests, it's really super flexible. And right now, back to now, it's green in Can I Use, so probably everyone in this room, if you mess with CSS, has already used Flexbox. Is that? Can I have a hand? Okay. So that's good. But there's only one problem. It's only working in one direction, right? You can only choose to have it in a row or in a column. And this sometimes may be a problem, so you have like flex boxes inside flex boxes and all that stuff. And that really reminds me of tables inside tables. So in this talk by Rachel Andrew, there was another thing, and that was CSS grid layout. If you look at the numbers, well, I don't have a cursor right now, but it started at the end of 2012, and yeah, I think it's not really finished, but of course, yeah, it's a candidate recommendation. But what happened this month at March 7th, Firefox got green, and 2 days later, Chrome got green. So it's in your browsers right now. Of course, if you have the developer editions, you have had that before, but this is green. And concerning Safari and Opera, well, they will be when the next version of Sierra and arrives. iOS, not yet there. No idea when that will come. And interestingly, the part on the left is Microsoft, of course. They have been supporting it a little longer. Eventually, since version 11, I think. Maybe, yeah, that was the first version. Yeah, but you need a prefix for that, and it's only the older version of the specification. But you can propose. There's a website for that where you can propose that Microsoft put some more work into it, and they are currently working on it, but it will take some time. But hopefully not too much time. Okay, so yeah, let's code. Not live, unfortunately, but somehow live. Okay. Yeah, what do we have here? We have yeah, a simple div with divs inside, I think, and the div around it is simply a display block, and so the elements inside are also blocks. So in all these cases, you put elements inside it, the eventual container will grow or shrink, and yeah, that's about it. So as I heard, the only thing to do to enable grid layout is to say display grid. Well, okay. So why is there no difference to the display block? Anyone, any idea? Well, it's just because the container has no explicit height. So if you don't mess with the elements inside the container, it will stay the same as display block. So let me go there. Okay. Okay, that was wrong. So that's display grid right now, and the element around it has height 480 pixels. So they all align vertically from bottom to top and fill up all the space that is there. Yeah. What we can do also is lay out the grid. So we can specify the columns and the rows. Unlike Flexbox, we can do it both ways. So I can say that I will have 3 columns, and each of them has to have a value of 300 pixels. and the right one I did in 240 pixels, and yeah, basically the rows defines the height, so this is 160 pixels and this is 240 pixels. And right now, let's see, is that I should have mirrored it. Where's the mouse? Oh, okay, so when I do it smaller, it stays the same. Okay. What I can also do is, no, that's basically the same. What I can also do is use another thing, but I'll come to that later. So this is just grid gap. You always know what to do when you have like grid systems like 960 grid or something like that. You always define these gutter parts, and in CSS grid layout, these are called grid lines, and you can you can define the width of these grid lines by pixel or by percentage, and that's everything you need to do. You know how in these frameworks you always have to make sure that it's the half of margin right or half of the gap, and then or margin left on the other element, and that is also quite a hassle. In this case, with grid, you only need to put value there, and it will lay out automatically. And of course, in this case, I'm gonna make that smaller. The grid size stays the same. The gap size stays the same, but the elements are variable. And that's because I use this thing, which is a fraction unit. That means I define how many columns I want to have, and I say how much space they have relatively to each other. So when I have 3 values there, then each of these elements will have 1/3 eventually of the space that is there. So that's about it. So if I do that like that, then the result is that you have the width of the container, and then the gaps get reduced by that, and then the space is evenly distributed. Yeah, what I can also do, there's also another way, like in Flexbox with order, but I can say where certain elements in my grid start. So I can say grid column start, right here, and grid row start. For an element, I did that on the second, on grid item 2. So instead of this, it's now 2 is now in the first position, from left to right. There's also a shortcut for that, which here I did some pretty strange stuff. So this item spans across rows, not only across columns, and I define the line where it starts and where it ends. So it's not from 1 to 2, which would be quite obvious, but no, it's 1 to 3, because I always define the start where the elements are. So, yeah. And of course I can do stuff like that. So this item here, this grid item, spans from this point across 2 rows and 2 columns. Okay. So, what am I doing right now? Yeah, this is quite interesting, because you have this thing called min-max, which means you define that columns can have a minimum size and a maximum size, and you can define it like that. So this left column will always be at least 300, max to the max of 320 pixels. And when I grab the window and make it smaller, it shrinks until it's 40 pixels, and it doesn't get smaller than that. But the other items change. So you might wonder what's with that. I just included some non-breaking spaces. So in this case, these two aren't the same. So although they have the same fraction unit. Okay. Then there's another thing inside the specification, which is repeat, and you can have values. One is auto-fit and one is auto-fill. I can't really tell you the difference. It's quite confusing, but but do it like that. Auto-fit can be used to have media queries without media queries. So I have this value of 240 minimum, and I have a maximum of one fraction, and I make it smaller, and the items just arrange inside the container when they have to be arranged, because there's not enough room anymore, depending on my size of my container. So that's quite nice. I don't know if I would really use it, because sometimes I have to meddle with it. Maybe it's better than media queries. Yeah, that's also another thing that's quite nice about grid layout. You can have named areas, and that's the thing. So I created an HTML where I have a header and a site, an article, and a footer, and I gave them the names header, sidebar, content, and footer. And I can actually lay these out quite in ASCII art. So I say that I have two columns, right? And which I defined here. So one column is one fraction, and the other column is two fractions, or twice the size of that one. And so that means the header spans across those two columns, and the sidebar is here, and the content is here. Quite obvious, right? Okay. That's kind of explicit, so it's maybe nice to lay out things like with that. What? The HTML, here. Okay, the HTML. Quite simple, no? Okay. Okay, yeah. Some of you might remember that one. That's also from the days of Zen Garden and stuff. This is the Holy Grail, where I have a sidebar which has a fixed size, and I have another sidebar which has another fixed size, and they will always stay the same. And when I make it smaller, only the content really changes the size, and the other things stay the same. Yeah. Okay, that's so far for the code. Now back to the real, right? This is a website I've been working on for the last 3 years, I think. This is the last version of it, and they came up with quite interesting choices how this article list has to look. Yeah, what's quite obvious is there are articles inside that article list, but there's also this thing where there stands where it's written Schlafsofas, and that's not an article. So how do I have to what do I have to do that this item has the same size as the articles? Yeah, I did that before CSS grid layout, and I did something which isn't really nice. So don't look into the code. There are hidden elements which have a padding top which spans these even in these items that don't have that. So basically, whereas the text behaves like the other, like the articles inside the article list, but there's just boilerplate HTML inside that, only to have the effect that every row has the same height no matter what's in there. And of course that's for these 100 euros and 300 euros the same. And what they also wanted to have was, that's a grid, but they wanted to have these lines, but only inside. So I did something very ugly. I used outline for that, and of course outline goes around everything. So in fact I put white divs on the left side, on the right side, or on the bottom and on the top. And yeah, that's not really nice. So eventually I will propose to our client that we do that with grid layout, because in grid layout all you have to do is have a background for that, have a fixed width, for example, for it, and it will lay out like that. Because grid always puts the gap inside, not on the outside. If you want to have outside, you can use border and whatever, or padding, or whatever you want. Yeah, okay. There are many other features in CSS grid layout, like you can align these like in Flexbox. In most of my examples, everything was stretched, but I can say it starts at the top and it starts at the bottom, and I can say these for all elements individually. So I can do strange things. I can even do something like that. An element inside the grid spans across another element which is at the bottom. Do you know what I mean? So they overlap like that. So I've one that goes there and that. Maybe there's a use case for that. I don't know. And of course there are a lot of shorthands. Most of the things that I used can be written in shorthands. So that's kind of nice. Okay, so if you want to dig deeper into grid layout, actually Rachel Andrew has this wonderful website called Grid by Example, which lists all these things, and she also has video tutorials about that. So go there, and it's quite easy to learn. You take one afternoon and you're basically done and ready to go. Okay, and that's about all what I have for you. Okay. Are there any questions? I'm still here. Yeah, right? I didn't so far, but I think when browser support raises, there will be no problem with that. Yeah. One thing that I think is mostly you would only have an effect if you use these on desktop devices, because grids don't really make sense, or you don't have to really do much on mobile devices, because there's not so much space, so you can have items just on top of each other. But yeah, you can use grid layout there too. Unfortunately not in iOS so far, but yeah, will come.